What's up, people? Evgen here, and I finally finished Red Dead Redemption 2. The logical question you're probably asking is, why now? And honestly, I don't really have an answer. School, exams, then work, it just never worked out. But as you can see, I'm slowly catching up and playing those games that, unfortunately, I miss for one reason or another. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. In fact, it's pretty awesome. First, some time has passed, and besides the game itself, it's interesting to see how things have changed over time. Second, I can make a video like this and talk about my impressions, especially how the game holds up now. Speaking specifically about RDR2, after beating it, I can confidently say it's a genuine masterpiece. It's only gotten better with age, like a fine wine. I want to give you a heads up right now. This video will have spoilers, straight up and major ones. Because in my opinion, trying to talk about RDR2 without spoilers? Nah, that seems impossible. So if you still haven't finished the game, or you're currently playing and don't want to ruin your experience, you should save this video and come back after the final credits roll. Alright, Red Dead Redemption 2. Before playing, all I heard from other people was that it was a masterpiece, like a total gem in the gaming industry. I even remembered one take that went something like, RDR2 is so masterful and detailed that after you play it, every other game feels like a cheap rush job. And you know what? At first I thought those were some pretty loud claims, especially for a game that dropped way back in 2018. I couldn't judge those words objectively then, but I kept them in mind, and after finishing it, I can confidently say it's totally true. Of course, I wouldn't call it a flawless or super perfect game, but the quality is seriously next level. Also, before I started, all I ever heard was that RDR2 is a pretty dull, drawn-out, and slow-paced game, which is why a lot of people just skipped it early on. And to be real with you, I agree with that take and can say I ended up in that boat myself. The game genuinely feels different. There's no constant action, and the pace is way slower than other games. My own situation was actually a little different. I started playing and barely understood anything at first. Some gang is running from someone, they rob something, there's a ferry in Blackwater, but none of it meant anything to me early on. The gang had a ton of unfamiliar people. Who are they? What are they doing? What's even going on? And what do they want from us? I had a lot of questions, and that's fair. Of course, I figured those questions would be answered as the story progressed. Except for one, the Blackwater robbery. That unfortunately is a big mystery that never fully got solved, even after beating the whole game. So I got through the prologue, reached our first camp, started doing missions, and caught that very boring vibe. After finishing the game, I can kind of, with a huge caveat, see why Rockstar did it. But honestly, I personally think the devs overdid it a little, which is why so many people felt like dropping the game. I knew about this, so I went into the playthrough seriously. At first I was doing quests, kind of just messing around. But the game wasn't grabbing me. The missions felt random. They didn't connect or move the main plot forward. And as a player, I had absolutely no motivation to do anything because, in my opinion, the developers failed to properly motivate and engage players. I get that those early quests were there for two main reasons. First, they taught us the basic game mechanics: hunting, survival, stealth, shooting, and all that. Second, all those side quests were put in exactly because of what I mentioned at the start of the video. There were a ton of people in the gang. Who even are these people? What do they want? What do they do? You get the picture, and those missions are supposed to introduce and flesh out the core gang members. Also, and this is key, we start to get attached to them, so that later we feel every loss more emotionally. But the issue, in my opinion, was that these quests were made dull, and frankly, not very interesting because, again, they did absolutely nothing to advance the overall plot and gave zero motivation to complete them. You're just walking along and bam, Hosea randomly suggests going hunting. You ride around a bit, learn a few things, shoot some stuff, come back, and what's the takeaway? Besides teaching you and introducing the character, that mission gave us zilch. What's more, the repetitive or similar quests kind of annoyed me personally. We already had that hunting quest in the snowy area, but then in the summer area, it was basically the same thing. Sure, that time it was hunting the legendary bear, and we got the map of legendary animals, but I think you get my point. There were also quests that seemed pointless, not connected to the main story, and didn't move it forward at all. I can give an example with the pastor. Early in the game, we save him from a train, and then it's unclear why we even did it. And I can point out another mission, like the boat robbery, where we play a rigged poker game and end up with an expensive watch. We prepare for the mission and execute it, but it's still not totally clear why it was done. On the one hand, it's a robbery. We got a watch, but it's never used in the story later. That raises a pretty logical question. Why did we even do that? Now, you might think all I'm doing is slamming the game, but that's not the case at all. I just wanted to immediately tell you about what gave me that boring vibe and what bothered and didn't impress me about the game. I won't lie to you. Yes, I had thoughts of putting the game on the shelf for a while, but I kept playing anyway. And after finishing it, I absolutely don't regret it. And I realized those thoughts were logical, but ultimately wrong. So if you drop the game for the same reason back in the day, I highly recommend you give it a second chance and dive back in. Seriously, just get through to chapter 3, no matter what, and after that, you won't be able to stop. As for my playthrough, I personally finished RDR2 in 82 hours. That's the main story and all the side quests available to me. Besides that, I did some extra and optional stuff. For example, I found the snowy white and incredibly gorgeous white Arabian horse, which I named Bella. She was with me almost from the start of the game, right up to the very end. So naturally, the moment I lost Bella at the end was incredibly emotional for me. And the way Arthur comforted her in her final moments and said that important word, thank you. Even now, I get a lump in my throat. It's a hugely emotional and dramatic scene, especially if you've had your horse since the beginning. Besides finding and taming the horse, I also crafted a new saddle for Bella. I also spent time hunting to make Arthur the Legend of the East Satchel. Of course, I hunted a few legendary animals and fully upgraded the camp. I guess it goes without saying that I bought and upgraded weapons and got new threads for Arthur. As you can tell, these were all non-essential activities, but I just wanted to do them. You can beat the whole game with a basic horse, a standard satchel, and simple clothes. Buying and upgrading weapons is totally optional, and you don't have to max out the camp either. But I wanted to do it because the game had me hooked, and I was genuinely interested. Immersion and unmatched detail. When I was playing RDR2, I was completely immersed in the atmosphere of that era. The Van der Linde gang became as important to me as they were to Arthur, and I didn't want to rush the story at all. I caught that very slow burn vibe and just dove headfirst into the Wild West. Sure, the experts will say I didn't explore anything, missed a lot, and basically flew through the game. I won't argue with that, but the main thing for me is that the game made me feel things. I was engaged and loved playing it. Everything else, in my opinion, is just BS. By the way, I have to point out that throughout my entire playthrough, I couldn't stop thinking that this is a 2018 game. It came out on PC in 2019, of course, but the core point remains. It is so incredibly detailed that even modern games can't get close to this level. I get that there are different budgets and development timelines, but even now, RDR2 is the gold standard for open worlds, with its unbelievable attention to the smallest details. I'm still blown away by moments like when we pick up an item. It looks so realistic. Arthur takes the object in his hands, looks at it, and then puts it in his satchel. That's just one example. We could talk about this for ages because the game is packed with such tiny details. RDR2 has almost simulated hunting, incredibly complex behavior and interaction with horses, and top-tier physics, lighting, and graphics. When you pick up a body or a killed animal, bloodstains appear on Arthur's clothes in that exact spot. And of course, the changing seasons are noteworthy. When we're in the snowy areas, Arthur is cold, and in the summer, it's hot, so you have to dress for the weather. RDR2 is simply not outdated, and that's a fact. In my view, this game is like wine. It only gets better with time. Modern games fall short compared to the sheer quality and detail of RDR2. I think that says it all. All right, I guess it's time to talk about Arthur Morgan himself. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. For me personally, he is the best character in the entire gaming industry. That's a huge claim, but it's true. He is a maximum effort, fully fleshed out character, right down to the smallest detail, with a strong personality, real emotions, and genuine concerns. Rockstar didn't just make a playable character. They created a whole person. Of course, a massive shout-out goes to Roger Clark for giving Arthur his voice. The developers just nailed the voice casting. I totally get now why Rockstar doesn't do full voice localization in other languages. It would seriously kill the vibe. Playing as Arthur Morgan, you realize he's not just some random outlaw or cowboy. He is, first and foremost, a human being. It's tough to convey that kind of emotion in video games, but they did it. I watched how Arthur's relationship with the gang evolved, and reading his journal gives you a window into his inner thoughts and struggles. What more can I say? I literally cried like a baby when Arthur was lying exhausted on that cliff, dying and watching the sunrise. I mean, I played as John later and went to Arthur's grave just to visit, not for any mission. I think that says it all. Arthur Morgan is in my heart forever. Besides Arthur, of course, the other characters are also incredibly detailed. What can I say? Even secondary characters are memorable and evoke emotion. I can give an example. The veteran mission is a side quest line where we meet the veteran Hamish. We do a few hunting and fishing tasks, and then, while hunting boar, Hamish is killed. As he's dying, he asks Arthur to look after his horse, Buell. Even though it's a short chain of side quests and Hamish isn't a main character, this story hit me personally and made me feel things, which to me is the most important thing. I truly wanted to take Buell after that mission. I took him to the stable and left him in their care. I can say the same about the rest of the characters. Dutch, Micah, Charles, Sadie, John, Hosea, Javier, Bill, Sean, Lenny, Karen, Abigail, Pearson, and I could keep going. Every single one of them is meticulously crafted and interesting in their own way. Leopold Strauss, by the way, is a real piece of work, so I'll just add, I was extremely happy when Arthur finally kicked him out of the gang. Other than Strauss, every loss hits hard and triggers genuine emotion. Take Lenny, for example. In the first half of the game, we have a quest where, unfortunately, we have to bust Micah out of jail. Before that, Arthur and Lenny decide to blow off some steam at the saloon. Of course, they got completely wasted, but that mission was hilarious and emotionally brought the characters closer. I think it's one of the most atmospheric missions in the game. And then, when Lenny gets shot and dies right in front of us, it's just sad. All those fun moments instantly come back, and you just feel bummed out. When a game can make you feel emotions that strongly, that's truly incredible. This goes for the other gang members too. Sean was just starting to get fleshed out, and then bam, he's shot. Hosea, in my opinion, wasn't in the game nearly enough, but he's memorable nonetheless, and he's killed right before our eyes. Even Kieran, who saved Arthur's life after being an outcast, still became a part of our gang, and losing him also brings out sincere emotion. Arthur even wrote about it in his journal, saying Kieran saved his life, and Arthur, in turn, couldn't do the same for him. Every character has their own motives, their own thoughts, their own personality, and their own story. Every character is memorable and certainly doesn't feel like a filler NPC. After finishing the game, I was genuinely curious to find out who vanished, what they were up to, and all that. I personally felt a major emotional breaking point after the St. Denis bank robbery. Mass casualties, plans going down the drain. No one knows what's next for the gang, and it's in that tough situation that you can already see Dutch leaving Arthur behind on the burning ship. Nobody waited for him. Nobody helped him. They just ditched him like a dog. Yet Arthur had always done everything possible for his gang. They were his #1 priority. That's why, for example, Arthur couldn't make a life with Mary. The gang came first. Knowing what that led to in the end is pretty upsetting and tragic. I got the second emotional hit after the first serious tuberculosis attack. That's when Arthur's illness was confirmed. The player hears the doctor's devastating news. Sure, some gang members asked about his health, but Dutch, for instance, already had a new plan in mind. One last job. We need more money, and, of course, Tahiti. Then I was shocked when Dutch abandoned Arthur again after the bond robbery, using the natives for his own ends. All these moments in general stir up a ton of emotions, both positive and negative. Frankly, RDR2 is a game that just shatters all gaming stereotypes. A typical game structure is, our character starts weak and under-leveled, and as we progress, we level up, making them stronger and learning new skills. With Arthur, it's the exact opposite. At the start of the game, we have a character who is full of strength, healthy, and looking good. But by the end, he even looks rough externally. The further we get into the story, the weaker Arthur becomes until he eventually dies. And of course, I have to mention the scene with Sister Calderon, where Arthur just opens up and says the legendary line, "I'm afraid."
He passed away. I had a girl who loved me. I threw that away. My mama died when I was a kid. And my daddy, well, I watched him die. And it weren't soon enough. I'm afraid.
That moment really gets to me. Even now, talking about it gives me chills. I'm just amazed that a game can be this emotional. I truly never thought before that a character in a game could be so deeply moving. And naturally, the most powerful emotional moment, the one where every self-respecting man probably cried hard, is when Arthur is riding his horse toward the camp, with all the most important quotes running through his head. And all of this is set to incredibly symbolic music. Then everything flips upside down. Arthur and John become outlaws to the gang. They finally bury the hatchet and become true brothers. Arthur hands over his hat and says goodbye to John, giving him a chance to secure his future. Go on, get out of here. Take care of your family. You're a good man, John Marston. I was running on pure adrenaline with the controller, and I had tears in my eyes the whole time. Arthur went through this whole long journey, and it all ends so sadly. But the main thing is that he achieved his core purpose. And with that, his story was over. Then the epilogue starts, and here's where I'm going to be critical. Such an emotional, dramatic ending for Arthur, such an intense rush of feelings. Then the epilogue where, at first, there's no mention of Arthur, and we're playing as John, who is cleaning up horse manure/waste and building a fence on a ranch. That's cool and all, but I really didn't like the epilogue. Yes, it sets us up for RDR1, showing us the beginning of John, Abigail, and Jack's story. But come on, right after Arthur's finale, it felt out of place. Later, of course, the epilogue picks up steam. We run into Uncle, Charles, and Sadie, and that's when things start to get interesting. But still, most of those missions felt like they were just padding the runtime. They could have used cutscenes or reworked some things to make it more engaging. Just my 2 cents. Ultimately, John builds his ranch and starts a new life with his family. But before that, thanks to Sadie, he wants revenge on Micah. And here's the main takeaway that John didn't learn. We have to remember that Arthur always said that revenge is a fool's game, and John didn't listen, which is why he decided to get revenge on Micah for Arthur. And of course, as we already know, this ultimately led to the events of RDR1. Then the credits rolled, and unfortunately, I skipped them right away. I later realized that was a mistake because that's where they showed what happened to the gang and what everyone was doing. Nicely done, Rockstar. I had to look it up on YouTube, and if it weren't for that video, I would have thought the game was completely over. I skipped the credits because it seemed logical. I wasn't expecting anything in the credits, because when I played GTA V, I waited and there was nothing. I didn't think RDR2 would have something there. It was a bit annoying, to be honest. I think the scenes about the gang should have been presented as a separate segment before the credits, not hidden within them. Then the epilogue starts, and here's where I'm going to be critical. Such an emotional, dramatic ending for Arthur, such an intense rush of feelings. Then the epilogue where, at first, there's no mention of Arthur, and we're playing as John, who is cleaning up horse manure/waste and building a fence on a ranch. That's cool and all, but I really didn't like the epilogue. Yes, it sets us up for RDR1, showing us the beginning of John, Abigail, and Jack's story. But come on, right after Arthur's finale, it felt out of place. Later, of course, the epilogue picks up steam. We run into Uncle, Charles, and Sadie, and that's when things start to get interesting. But still, most of those missions felt like they were just padding the runtime. They could have used cutscenes or reworked some things to make it more engaging. Just my 2 cents. Ultimately, John builds his ranch and starts a new life with his family. But before that, thanks to Sadie, he wants revenge on Micah. And here's the main takeaway that John didn't learn. We have to remember that Arthur always said that revenge is a fool's game, and John didn't listen, which is why he decided to get revenge on Micah for Arthur. And of course, as we already know, this ultimately led to the events of RDR1. Then the credits rolled, and unfortunately, I skipped them right away. I later realized that was a mistake because that's where they showed what happened to the gang and what everyone was doing. Nicely done, Rockstar. I had to look it up on YouTube, and if it weren't for that video, I would have thought the game was completely over. I skipped the credits because it seemed logical. I wasn't expecting anything in the credits, because when I played GTA V, I waited and there was nothing. I didn't think RDR2 would have something there. It was a bit annoying, to be honest. I think the scenes about the gang should have been presented as a separate segment before the credits, not hidden within them.